Laura Louise and I, we spent some time emailing back and forth, deciding on what would my best story would be. We actually agreed, first try, that my best story is the story of the time that I was diagnosed with ringworm. I think, one of the things we liked about it, of course, was that it has a twist ending. Because, of course, I didn't have ringworm. But there's a lot that a person can learn in the several months that they are being treated for a skin condition that they don't have. Things like what it is, what's ringworm? What does it look like? I didn't know these things. I didn't know, and I guess my family didn't really know either, because my parents were the ones that initially noticed these round, dry patches of skin on my arms. And I don't know, it was like something about the way I looked that night. Made my family, the people who have known me longer than anyone in the world, made them think ringworm. And I guess, as soon as that idea was put out there, we all kind of just nodded and agreed. Something about ringworm, something about me having ringworm, it felt right. So my doctor, he agreed that ringworm just was consistent with the rest of my disgusting medical history. And we did, of course, consider the fact that ringworm usually is something that animals have, but that when humans do get it, it's usually been passed to them from their pets. And of course, it raised some questions that I didn't have any pets, but not enough to make us ignore our gut feelings. And the feelings were that I am a gross person. And the feeling that I probably have a ringworm. So it's just a wild guess that we took. And you know what? Maybe I could have taken a moment to acknowledge that this was the same doctor. He had misdiagnosed me before with kind of pink eye. And he had treated me for this pink eye, and when in reality what I had really had was a different kind of pink eye. It was a kind that you can't really treat, that it really actually makes it a lot worse if you treat. But really, what the two of us were both very focused on when I came in with this skin condition, we were very focused on the fact that I was the kind of a 24-year-old woman who gets pink eye. So this made just everything made sense. And but I will say, to my credit, to this day, that bout of pink eye remains the only sexually transmitted infection I've ever got. If that helps. So for over a week, I rubbed my circular dry patches with a prescription ringworm cream. I did it very meticulously until I was absolutely sure that this cream was just making it worse. And so back under that fluorescent light of his office, my doctor and I, we took stock of all of my moral shortcomings. Until we could surmise that, of course, like I just had like I was like really gross. The kind of gross that has like a special kind of ringworm that can't be treated in like the regular way. So after getting my new, like, stronger, like, more potent prescription ringworm cream, I was rubbing that on my now, like, very inflamed and itchy patches. And I was thinking to myself, you know what, I can win this. That I might be gross now. But that's not to say that I have to be gross in the future. In the future, I can be anything as long as I just can embrace. Embrace this chafing discomfort of change. So summer by this point, it had turned into fall, which was very fortunate for me because wearing short sleeves was just no longer an option. The ringworm had spread. I was now becoming like an entirely different color of person. And there was never a moment where my doctor or I like considered that like maybe I don't have ringworm. Like maybe it's a different thing. We were just kind of more ringworm had become maybe like a kind of higher power that we worshipped, despite the growing evidence that it didn't exist. Because if you really commit to a belief system, like eventually like a little religion will just grow around it. And then that will spread. And everyone will just be completely on board that you're discussing freak because fact undeniably is just constantly overpowered by faith. My mom and I recently we got into a big fight, and she said, "Amy, the reason that you are such a failure is that you think that you're a failure." And you know, there was a better way to say that. It's not the way she chose. And actually, I'm gonna, before I like go too far down the mom path, first I'm gonna say, like, I just want to note that like parts of the story may have been embellished naturally. They're the parts where I might come to like a grand realization during the course of the events. So just understand that like any lesson that I learn or ascribe to this story was added in post. It's like CGI significance. So that, you know, hopefully this story about how I once didn't have ringworm could find resonance with a broader audience. Okay, so you know that now. Recently, a lot of people who are close to me have been making like a really good case. They've been trying really hard to convince me that I'm not going to achieve the things I want to achieve. They kind of said, you know what, Amy, like we took a look at those round, dry patches, and we think that you're just not a good enough writer. My parents, they sat me down recently. They sat me down and they said, you're 28 now, and I think it's pretty fair to say that this writing thing hasn't worked out. And they asked me they made a very formal request that I just stop. And it would be nice, of course, if I could just get mad and blame my mom for telling me that she felt personally hurt by my lack of professional success. But I can't. I think it really kind of does come back to me and to the beliefs that I've chosen to put my faith in. Beliefs like that I am a gross loser, idiot. Sometimes those beliefs just aren't totally useful things. Okay. So for a month, I took those. I had gone back to my doctor, and my rash had spread everywhere. I was kind of a big mess. And he and I, we didn't even consider maybe it's not ringworm. We were like, well, I guess that you, Amy, are so gross that you have this very rare kind of ringworm that can only be treated with an oral antibiotic that has that is only ever used as this last resort. Because the long list of side effects is just very significant. It's like gastrointestinal problems, like liver failure, or something hair related, like falling out or growing. Just general discomfort and misery. And so, but eventually, I took those antibiotics and for over a month, and when I went back to the doctor, it was a very uncomfortable month. I had to adjust to being a different color of person, and he was just totally at a loss. He was like, in all of my years pretending to be a medical professional, I've never seen someone this gross. He said, I don't know what kind of ringworm you have, Amy, but I can't treat it. And then he wrote me a referral for a specialist, and then he put me onto a raft and drifted me out to sea. I don't know, dermatologists, if you've ever seen one, they're basically specialists in gross. They treat pretty much exclusively the kinds of things that people immediately regret doing Google image searches of. And so I had this specialist of gross things look at me and just for a second, and he basically immediately was like, oh, you don't have ringworm. What you have is dry skin. And he gave me some moisturizer. And that's when I realized that all of us, everyone here, we all have inside of us our own tiny incompetent doctor. There's just constantly misdiagnosing shortcomings and over-prescribing law school. And we gotta remember, guys, you gotta remember, no matter what happens, no matter what part of your anatomy you eventually learn is crooked and misshapen, you have to ignore that voice, the voice that's always gonna be there telling you a ringworm. And instead, we need to, cultivate a different voice. For me, it's worked like maybe the voice of like a deadpan and like oddly tanned dermatologist who, like, no matter how bad things get, no matter how defeated you feel, he says, well, I seen worse. And then directs you to some of the most disturbing YouTube videos that you will ever watch repeatedly. Thanks, guys. Happy anniversary.